We've all been there, knowingly tolerating the toxic behavior, the belittling words, the emotional manipulation, all in the name of love or acceptance. But deep down, what's really going on, and why do we consistently put ourselves through the ringer with people who don't respect us? The truth is, it's not about their behavior. It's about our own insecurities, and a fundamental psychological need that drives people to be drawn to those who consistently disrespect and belittle them, a desperate craving for validation, no matter how negative. I know I'm not alone in this. I've seen it in people I care about, in myself, and in the relationships I've been a part of, where we're so desperate for love and acceptance that we'll take it from anyone, even if it means sacrificing our own dignity and self-respect. In this video, we're going to explore the unseen motive behind why people are drawn to abusive relationships, and how our deep-seated insecurities are the key to understanding why we're so willing to settle for love that's not only unfulfilling but also toxic, and what this says about us as humans. As we delve into the complex world of toxic relationships, we must acknowledge that the pull is often rooted in an unconscious drive for security, a desperate attempt to validate our self-worth in the eyes of others. When we're drawn to those who consistently undermine our sense of self, it's often a veiled attempt to compensate for deep-seated feelings of inadequacy and insecurity, a cry for help that we're not willing to hear. In reality, the people who claim to love us but consistently disrespect our boundaries and diminish our dignity are merely exploiting an unmet need for validation, one that we're desperate to fulfill, no matter the cost. We're drawn to those who take control, who dictate the terms of our relationship, often because it provides a twisted sense of security. A desperate attempt to regain some semblance of power in a world that often feels overwhelming and uncontrollable. At its core, toxic attraction is often an attempt to fill the void left by unresolved childhood traumas and unmet emotional needs, a futile pursuit of a substitute relationship to replace one that never truly existed. In these desperate attempts to find love, acceptance, and validation in all the wrong places, we often find ourselves trapped in a cycle of self-deception, justifying and rationalizing the behaviors that hurt us most, all in the hopes of clinging to a sense of attachment and connection with someone who doesn't truly respect us. When we wear the mask of independence, what we often reveal is a desperate attempt to hide from the vulnerability that comes with true connection, because the truth is, deep down, we're convinced our worth depends on external validation. We're drawn to those who don't respect us because in their rejection, we find a twisted sense of validation, a morbid proof that we're still capable of eliciting a reaction from someone. Behind the facade of self-sufficiency lies a crippling need for control, a futile attempt to dictate our circumstances because we've lost faith in our ability to shape our own destiny. In seeking relationships with those who disregard us, we're unconsciously trying to prove to ourselves that we're still worthy of love and attention, but really, we're just perpetuating a vicious cycle of self-deception. People often mistake our need for respect as a desire for power. But the truth is, what we're really craving is a sense of belonging, a feeling of being seen and understood, even if it means sacrificing our own dignity. The ones who don't respect us are often the ones to whom we're most drawn, because in their eyes, we see a distorted reflection of our own low self-esteem, a validation that fuels our addiction to chaos and instability. When we're drawn to people who don't respect us, it's a cry for validation, a desperate attempt to convince ourselves that we're worthy of love and attention, even if it means sacrificing our own well-being. We're drawn to those who push us away because it's the one situation where we get to be the victim, where we get to feel the familiar sting of insecurity and validate our own narrative of inadequacy. People often claim they are bad for each other, but in reality, they are perfectly tuned to feed each other's deepest insecurities, like two musicians playing the same discordant note in perfect harmony. This attraction to those who want love us back is not just about the thrill of the chase. but about the illusion of control we think we have over others, like holding onto a broken vase, convinced that we can fix it with just the right amount of force. It's fear that drives this attraction, the fear of being alone, of being unlovable, of being forgotten. And those who don't respect us offer a warped sense of security, a temporary reprieve from the uncertainty of our own worth. Underneath all this drama and deception lies a fundamental question: are we more comfortable with being broken, with being the pieces that don't fit, than we are with the uncertainty of being whole, of being ourselves? When we enter into relationships with people who don't respect us, we're not looking for healthy intimacy, but rather a shallow sense of validation that our insecurities can easily latch onto. It's a vicious cycle where we're desperate for someone's approval, but our own self-worth is so fractured that we sabotage our chances of getting it from someone who truly cares for us. The reason we're drawn to these toxic partners is not because we're unaware of their behavior, but because deep down, we've convinced ourselves that our feelings and needs aren't worth respecting, and that's a much harder truth to confront. We think we want love and connection, but what we really crave is the fleeting sense of control we get from being in these relationships, the feeling that we're somehow able to dictate how someone else behaves, even if it's at the expense of our own dignity. There's a fine line between attraction and masochism, and often, we're so caught up in the latter that we start to believe the relationship is actually fulfilling our needs, when in reality, we're just numbing the pain of our own inadequacies. What starts as codependency eventually turns into self-deception, where we convince ourselves that our partner's behavior is normal, that we're lucky to have them, and that we're somehow responsible for their toxic actions. We're often led to believe that we're drawn to certain people because of their exciting or charismatic nature, but what if the truth runs much deeper than that? You see, the underlying motivation behind these attractions isn't about the other person's charm. It's actually about our own deep-seated insecurities. We're constantly seeking validation and love to fill the void within us, and so we become prey to the idea that someone, anyone, will be able to rescue us, to fix the problems that we can't fix ourselves, to give us a sense of worth and belonging. But in reality, those who disrespect us often serve as a mirror, reflecting back all the parts we've deemed unworthy, unlovable, or unacceptable. What's fascinating is that our attraction to these toxic relationships isn't about love. It's about control, and the feeling of being needed is a powerful stimulant that drives us to keep coming back for more, even when it's clear that we're being hurt. This vicious cycle is a result of our desperate need for self-preservation, a desperate attempt to fill the empty spaces within our souls. We often hide behind the narrative that we're strong and capable of handling any situation, but the truth is, our egos are fragile, and we're just as terrified of being hurt as anyone else. And it's this fear that drives us to seek out relationships that will ultimately reinforce our negative self-perceptions, relationships that will continue to remind us of our worthlessness. But what's truly disturbing is how good we are at self-deception, at convincing ourselves that we're not actually hurting, that we're not worthy of love and respect. We become skilled at rationalizing our behavior, making excuses for why we're stuck in these toxic relationships, why we keep coming back for more. And it's this level of self-deception that's perhaps the most destructive of all. Perhaps the most crucial realization is that our attraction to those who disrespect us isn't a reflection of the other person. It's a reflection of us, a reflection of our deepest, darkest fears, our greatest insecurities, and our most profound needs. And until we confront these inner demons, until we address the underlying issues that drive us to seek out harm, we'll continue to cycle through the same patterns of behavior, stuck in a never-ending cycle of self-sabotage. Thanks for watching this thought-provoking exploration of our complex desires and patterns in relationships. Take a moment to reflect on your own life. Have you ever found yourself drawn to someone who pushes your boundaries or disrespects you? If so, I'd love to hear your story like this video. Comment below with your observation, and subscribe for more honest discussions about human psychology and the unseen forces that shape our lives.